we go. Alrighty, so today this is our agenda, our wishful agenda. We want to be able to make sure that we give enough space for you all to ask questions and engage and give some ideas also. So this is our goal, but don't be surprised if we end up not being able to share everything today. These slides will be shared with you all after the event. Once we follow up, and we'll be sending you all of the materials. So don't worry about that. All right. And so, so while I go ahead and talk about how we show up today, if you all can go ahead and feel free to, in the chat box, tell us who you are, where you're coming from, and what you hope to get out of the session. That would be super great. So how we choose to show up. So as we know, during the pandemic, we ended up using Zoom a lot, and a lot of folks, and this is also something that happens when you are presenting in front of a group, right? So every time we show up as a certain person, right? And so sometimes we may show up as a resistor. We're showing up like, my boss told me I had to be here. I'm gonna go and just be there, but you're not actually fully present, right? You're just kind of like, I just got to be here. So that's the resistor. You could be showing up as a vacationer. You're like, well, here's a meeting. I'm just gonna, show up, turn off my camera, make my coffee, and not really pay attention to what's going on. You can show up as a sophisticate. You're like, I know everything already. This is whatever, or you can show up as an explorer and someone that, is thinking about, all right, what could I potentially get from this presentation? What can I get from maybe some of the other folks that are showing up into the space? And so this is also relevant to Bill and I as presenters, wanting to make sure that we're actually here as explorers and really trying to make sure that we're taking in as much as we can, and also, being as positive as we can. So I ask you all to check in with yourselves, see where you're at, and maybe if it's possible to shift yourselves to be in a space of explorers. Uh-oh, see? Let me, okay. And so this is how we're asking this of you all to kind of reflect on yourselves. All right, so as we are, Bill, did we skipped something?
Yeah, the objectives, I think, slide 3.
Okay, here we go. All right, so our objectives for today are that we shared the history and efforts to support the expanded learning workforce. Before the ELOP funding, there are already efforts that were in place to wanting to make sure that that we had a sustainable workforce. We'll be sharing the challenges in finding staff, especially due to the expansion. We will introduce how we as CAN view the workforce movement, especially for folks that are coming into the expanded learning fields, and what are some of those career pathways. As we'll be sharing strategies that support in the development of staff through programs for high school students. We hope to expose new and upcoming expanded learning apprenticeships And we hope to share the upcoming efforts to recruit experienced workers or folks who are retired and are in that part of their lives. Okay. And then this is how we approach our work. Our work is rooted in equity, and this has to be embedded in every aspect of the work that we do and the exploration. Quality happens to be one of the outcomes. If you design programs that are for everyone and that are truly inclusive for everyone, then quality will follow. We support the growth and evolution of learning organizations through compassion, and continuous quality improvement is one of our strategies. And everything we do lives within the whole child, whole and health and wellness framework, which we're going to talk a little bit about afterwards. All right, and now I will pass it on over to you, Bill.
All right, thank you, Leslye. Going to briefly go over a little history of the efforts that have been going on over the past few years. These efforts in the workforce work started with the Strategic Plan 2.0, the Expanded Learning Strategic Plan 2.0, and workforce was one of those things that was identified that we needed to work on. And as most of you know, we have a workforce in the state of approximately 30,000 folks in the field. However, we're not always recognized as an official field, right? We're always lumped in with something else or somebody else. And, you know, with that amount of workers and the work that we do, being recognized in a field and working on those strategies to promote the field and the workforce began, you know, about 3 or 4 years ago after Strategic Plan 2.0. If we want to take that context a little bit further, we're going to go with the funding of VLOP, probably from around 30,000 employees or workers to 80 to 100,000. So we're talking ridiculous exponential growth in a very short period of time, right? And growth at a time where we got the money, but there wasn't a lot of structure and stuff put into place before the money came down. Henceforth, why everybody's a little unnerved and working furiously to try to figure this out. I'd be honest with you, for years we didn't have enough money and we had a pretty good structure, and then they gave us a ton of money and not enough structure to be able to spend it. So please know we're all in the same place. We're all trying to figure that out. I don't know that anybody has it figured out to this point. So the first iteration and first strategy that we employed is we put together a workforce strategy committee. This committee was made up of expanded learning professionals from all over the state in many different positions and walks. And they worked from 2019 to 2020. And their work developed these particular recommendations. Quickly, doing a better job of data collection, so that the data could inform ongoing work and related workforce development. Policy and funding, right? Increasing funding. Well, we got some funding, didn't we? And influence policy support the development of community-derived, culturally relevant, stable, and well-trained expanded learning workforce to ensure quality expanded learning programs. Looking at a college credit system and cross-sector partnerships to incentivize and attract a diverse expanded learning workforce through a flexible and accessible college credit system. Fourth point was economic mobility and success, addressing the barriers to economic mobility and access to ensure the expanded learning workforce is reflective of California's diverse children and youth. And then fifth, career pathways and professional development, strengthening career pathways and professional development for the expanded learning workforce. So these were the recommendations from the Workforce Strategy Committee, or the WISC as we've come to know it. And then moving from the WISC to what we call the WIC, which is the acronym for the Workforce Implementation Committee. This committee met for 2 years. As you can see, folks listed here from regions all over the state and in different positions in expanded learning, again, from all over the state, were the members of this committee. And their job was to really figure out how to implement the recommendations or some of the recommendations from the WISC. I believe there were 5 recommendations, and the Workforce Implementation Committee concentrated on 3 of them. A lot of work done over 2 years. A lot of things were developed through that. Next slide, please. Oh, there we go. They divided things up, the research and promising practices, developing that community right that we talked about earlier, and they kind of looked at all of these. Through that was created a unifying vision, some expanded learning research, looking at putting together earn and learn models, templating recruitment flyers, communications roadmaps, interview frameworks, and pathway efforts. So that was the work of those 2 groups. That went on for 2 years and just concluded last June. Moving to the next slide, strengthening the workforce webpage. This shows you, this webpage is up on the CAN website, and this kind of explains to you with the framing from the WIC unifying vision on how we are actually walking through this work. So it's kind of giving you a progression here of how we've been working through this work. And this will continue to change as the work goes forward, because we're knocking a lot of things down and out of the way. And of course, the other thing we want to stress and make sure that you're all aware of and that you use is, CAN is part of the system of support. However, your first probably contact, or if you're struggling with something or you have needs or you need some technical assistance, your first call should probably be to your regional lead. As they spoke of earlier, there are 11 regions in California for the system of support, and there's actually 16 different offices as some of those counties in some of our areas. They each have their own office. So one thing I want to encourage everybody before you necessarily reach out to CAN, a lot of your regional leads and folks in your region have these answers. A lot of them have some technical assistance they can provide for you. And if you need to go further, they can put you together with us, or they can reach out to us and we can work with them to assist in moving these agendas forward. So that's enough of the old background, so on and so forth, and what's been going on for the last 3 years. And remember, all this was going on, started before COVID happened, continued through COVID, and was being done with no awareness that, like nobody else knew, right, that ELOP was coming. So keep that in mind. This has been going on, not just a reaction to ELOP. I'm going to guess that most people here are trying to figure out how they can hire more people, where they can find more people, what kind of innovative strategies that folks are using. So at this point, I'd kind of like to open it up to the room and ask, or am I a little early on that? I'm sorry, I'm a little early on that, but let's do that anyway. I'm sure that some of you have some great strategies and some great things you've been doing to get yourselves some employees in the short term. We know in expanded learning, when we put groups together like this, a lot of times the answers are in the room. And I'm sure, well, today we're going to talk about some short-term strategies. We're going to talk about some longer-term strategies more at the end of the presentation. But what I'd like to do now is open it up to the participants. And if any, we want to encourage you all to have a discussion, do a little sharing on what are the short-term strategies that you may have been using, or some long-term things you put into effect that have been successful for you that you could share with others here in the room. And we know that there's a lot of them out there. So we want to encourage anybody that has some great strategies, things they're doing. If you could raise your hand, we will call on you right away. And then you can come on the mic and let us know who you are, where you're from, and share with everybody the things that you're doing that are successful and are helping you, because we all know there's no silver bullet in hiring, right? There's no silver bullet that's going to fix everything. It's going to be a lot of different strategies to be able to hire everyone that you need. So we'll start there. And I believe, if I'm not mistaken, Leslye Gonzalez, you want to share with us? Thank you.
Thank you. Good morning, everyone. My name is Leslye Gonzalez, and I am the Executive Director with the YMCA of Silicon Valley. We support a dozen plus school districts in the Bay Area, And one of the strategies that we recently had success with that I want to share, but also some struggles because we are in different school districts. We see success in districts that are very collaborative with us, and then we struggle with other districts that are not. And so in one of the school districts, through ELOP funds, we had existing after school programs already in the Morgan Hill School District, but not across all of the school sites. So with ELOP, we went on to a transition where we opened up before and after school programs, doubled our capacity, and had to hire about 40 people in an 8-week period, which was our timeline to transition everyone and open up these spaces. So one of the things that worked really well, along with the school district, I suggested that we reach out to their existing classified community, as well as their parent community. Through a survey, we did a simple Google survey, letting them know we are launching these great before and after school programs. Here are the hours of operation. We're looking for people that love to work with kids. Please answer the survey, and it was very simple. What days of the week are you available? Are you currently working with the school district? Yes or no? What is your position? And what is your availability? We ended up getting over 75 responses from not only existing people in the core day, but also, college students of families, that had maybe younger brothers and sisters in our program. We had people who were looking for jobs, or moms that had the time to be able to join and apply. And so that was very successful in that district. And replicating that with other school districts has been very difficult. And so we saw success in being able to fully staff and double our services in 8 weeks in one school district to other school districts, and we're still struggling just to meet the base program, which is the ACEs, or 21st century numbers, can't expand to ELOP funds because we don't have the staffing. And so that has been my experience.
Awesome. Thank you for sharing that, because yes, isn't it interesting how different districts and different scenarios can produce different results, right? So thank you very much, Lizette. I appreciate that.
Yeah, and I just want to also highlight what was shared in the chat box from Marla. Reaching out to local community colleges has also been a strategy that some folks have used and has generated results. If you have a contact, a relationship already formed, usually what we've found is if you have a professor that maybe is the lead for a certain department that focuses on youth development, for example, like that would be a great resource, being able to present to college students and recruit from that angle also has been successful for some regions.
Awesome. Marla, I'm wondering if I can somewhat put you on the spot here and ask you to perhaps share, how were you able to do that? Like, what was the process you used? Because a lot of folks here, I'm sure, have they have community college near, but how do they get started? Who do they reach out to? How did you connect? What was the way that you did that? Because I think that would be helpful for others to know.
Okay, I'm on the, hi, this is Marla, sorry.
Oh, you're great.
Hello, hi. I'm on the call with also my director, but yes, I reached out to the local community college and just went to their career center. And now everything is pretty much online. It used to be where you could go and do like the different career things on the campus, right? And have your table out there and give out your flyers. That's not really what's happening now. So everything is pretty much online. And what they do is I was able to receive their information, and then I uploaded my information, and then that went to all of the community colleges. And then if you let them know what exactly you are looking or where you're looking to target, they will actually target the different classes, like child development classes, the different professors that are looking for that. And so that was actually, it was a very easy process. I just suggest calling the Career Center at your local community college and speaking to them and letting them know. It was pretty quick, pretty easy.
Awesome. Awesome, Marla. Thank you very much. Ken, did you want to add anything to that? I saw you put something in the chat. Is there something you'd like to add to that?
Sure. Good morning, everybody. Yeah, it was a lot like what Marla said, but we were able to talk to, we have a satellite campus here in town for one of our big JCs in the Bakersfield area. And we were just able to meet with their, with a group that had the ability to give priority registration for morning classes to our staff that were working in after school. So as a lot of us know, a lot of times we lose staff just because their college schedule changes, right? I couldn't get the class I wanted in the morning. It's only available in the afternoon. Sorry, I have to resign. So that really helped because our satellite campus here is growing in leaps and bounds, and we're 30 miles from Bakersfield. So it was really great for our Delano College kids to be able to take their classes in the morning and then still keep their job and work with us in the afternoon. So that was a big help.
Awesome. Awesome. Okay. Lenny, I see you have your hand up. How about we let you share?
Hi, Bill.
My friends at Fontana Unified, my buddy Sergio. Yes, indeed.
So I actually had a question for Marla.
Okay.
From Altaloma, she shared that she reached out to the local community college. So Marla, we're your neighbors in Fontana. So do you have numbers? Was it very successful, your recruiting efforts through the local college? I'm assuming it's Chafee.
Yes, we did go through Chafee and we went on their job speaker, and it also goes out to the Mount Sac and other ones that are in this area as well. We just recently did that. So we haven't seen numbers just yet. We do currently with our district have a standing day where we are doing interviews each week to make sure that when the people are coming through that we are offering that opportunity to interview people as they come in instead of waiting for weeks and weeks to get them in.
Awesome.
Yeah. I did see somebody was asking about the tests. So what we do in Fontana with that exam, because we have the same requirements, the 48 units degree or the competency exam, is we have study guides. And so Fontana Unified created years ago our own exam, and now we offer it through adult education, and we facilitate proctoring it on a monthly basis and prep applicants for the exams, either with an online practice questions or a paper study guide. So that's how we've been able to support them in passing the exam so they can qualify.
Yeah, and I see a lot of head nods too. I know that different districts have different strategies. So if you have some also that have been successful, please feel free to share.
Let me make a point on that, then I'm going to go to my friend, Mr. Howard. You are going to see in some of the slides upcoming when we talk about entry points into expanded learning or hiring people, that really the biggest roadblock, hurdle, call it what you like, is getting folks to pass the instructional aid exam or the like that's required by the district, right? One of the biggest strategies we will tell you that you would want to hope to go back with and hope to share is, and I love what you Lenny said. The guys, they're doing it once a month in Fontana, but being able to give some test prep or exam prep for young people, even as early as high school, right? And those folks that are just graduate high school, being able to prepare them for that exam and scheduling that exam more often, more frequently, and in strategic times is the big key to building this workforce. Because if everybody has to wait for 48 units in 2 years of college, and these days 2 years of college is probably not going to get you all 48, though it could, is a real bottleneck. It's a real constriction. So the one thing I would tell, and you'll see some graphic examples of it moving forward, is getting the instructional exam aid in front of people, getting them prepared to pass it, young people to pass it, is probably the biggest key to expanding your workforce. I will tell you that right now. So that requires you working with your districts and working with folks to get them to understand that. We will talk about it in a minute, but they're probably listening at this point where they might not have been in years past. But I can't stress enough to every one of you how pivotal it is to prepare young people to take the IA exam and have those IA exams done much more frequently. I just want to really drive that point home. It's a really great conversation. And we'll refer to that a little bit further down the line. Mr. Howard, what do you have for us, big guy?
Hey, everyone. I just was going to say, just concurring with Bill, casting that second net. So young people give the test a try. That's really important. A lot of motivation and encouragement. I call it casting the second net. So working with your HR department to help you identify who did not pass that test. You know, I mean, give me that list and then intentionally reach out to them, because you have to reach out, because like anyone, if you didn't pass the test, you're not going to try again unless someone reaches out sometime to you. Second piece is get with your HR department to examine the exam. I literally was just doing it yesterday in our HR department, and there are questions in the exam that no longer apply or are not good questions. So they have like 100. They give us like one time a year or once every 2 years to go ahead and examine the exam in the HR department, and I'm able to go through and cross out questions that are not appropriate because our job has changed, right? Our actual job titles and the duties of our staff have changed. So I noticed on there, for example, there was a question that asked about fees. We don't do fees like that anymore in our program, but it was 5 questions about, can you identify something about fee? It was so obsolete for what we need for our frontline staff. Completely cross that off the test and replace with and circle the other questions. You get like 250 questions to choose from. So that was a really intentional thing for me to see. Wow, these questions don't even apply.
That's awesome, Dennis. And there's another opportunity if you can get conversations with your district or your HR folks. It's a really good point. I believe in one county I'm dealing with in Central California, the IA exam has 200 questions. What in the world do they need 200 questions for, right? And a lot of it is just, education status quo. We've been doing that way for 10 years or 15 years. Nobody may have even looked at the exam recently. Also, a district could create their own expanded learning worker exam. That potential does exist. So modifying the current one and again, it's reducing that bottleneck, getting folks in that are capable of doing the work, but are somehow paper screened out by this. So really, really important. And yes, working with those folks can make one heck of a big difference in you being able to bring people on.
I was also going to say real quick, just make sure you update your job descriptions too, because the nature of the job is changing so quickly, right? Not with ELP, but even post-pandemic, update those job descriptions and make sure the exam reflects what's on that job description. And I was just, job descriptions make a big deal because when someone looks at that, that's where they decide if they want to apply. Like, that's not me. Would our frontline see themselves in that job description?
Thank you, Dennis. Before I move on to Marie Tolliver, because I'm fascinated by what she's put in the chat and I really want to hear this. Julie, I noticed you put something, we talked about working with community colleges. So before I move to Marie, I just wanted to perhaps give you a chance to tell us how you made those connections with the child development teacher prep programs and where you're targeting stuff, because I think that would be helpful as well, right?
Sure, absolutely. So we're in Los Angeles, right? We're working with the Teach LA network too. So there's networks of community college teacher prep programs, and so we're doing a variety of things. We're meeting with them. We've done presentations for those groups at individual colleges themselves. And then we also we actually have. I heard someone mention, right, needing to. Often staff, right, having staff who often have to choose between work and school. And so we actually put a staff member on our own team that is a college and career counselor working with our own staff to be able to help get them into programs and keep them in programs, right? So that we can adjust schedules or have proactive conversations with them so that they don't have to choose, right? So, and because we're working directly with community colleges, we also have communication channels to be able to kind of understand both sides of that. And we even work with community colleges to line up our competencies as far as what we're training towards for our staff with theirs as well. So we're kind of speaking some of the same language with those departments too, so that so those individuals, right, feel that those are aligned in parallel too. So, and we even have one of our staff as an adjunct professor at one of those colleges too, right? Just to make sure that there's real integration. So it's multifaceted and deepening as we go along.
Awesome.
And
Thank
I
you.
would say that that's a strategy that's both supporting the short term, right, need, and then also a good example for long-term need, right? So like making sure that you're actually nurturing your workforce, preparing them professionally, supporting them in getting to the next their next phase in their life. So that's
yeah, that's exactly right. Right. We think, right, with the teacher pipeline shortage period, right, this is also a great way for us to be able, because we also know, right, just like the young people that we serve, getting to college, it can be a challenge, but getting through those programs can also be a challenge, and we can help to facilitate too. So yeah, thanks for recognizing that.
Awesome. Thank you, Julie. All right. I'm gonna call up Maria Tolliver, who works in Pasadena Learns, which is where myself and Mr. Howard got our start in Pasadena Learns. So Maria, I really want to hear how you do your grassroots and boots on the ground strategy in recruiting in your community.
Thank you. Good morning, Dennis. Good morning, everybody. I'm Maria Tolliver. I'm the Director of Expanded Learning Programs for Pasadena Unified. And yeah, we, along with all the strategies that everyone else spoke about, the job recruitment centers at community colleges, that's, job search engines, we use those as well. We were just finding that we weren't getting the applicant pool, as frequently and as robust as we needed. And so we just put recruitment teams together, and like our teams go out into the community because we really do want to employ people who live in the area. And so, we have recruitment teams that go out into the community. They post flyers at local churches, employment development offices. They put them on car windshields and shopping center parking lots. So just really going out into the local community and just peppering the neighborhoods with our recruitment flyers and that we're hiring. And so that's really done a lot to get us people who live in the community who are available to work, along with those who attend the community colleges that are local. But that's helped a lot in just recruiting new staff and getting staff on board that actually live in the community that we serve.
Awesome. Right. That's what we want to do, right? We want to serve our community with our community, right? That's huge, right? Very huge. Anybody else have anything that they'd like? This is great sharing, y'all. I really appreciate it. Like, I think a lot of people are really learning from this, including myself. So I think it's awesome. Okay, Ashley Lewis, I see you have your hand up. Thank you.
Hi, everyone. My name is Ashley Lewis. I work for the Greenfield After School Success Program here in Bakersfield. One thing that I noticed when recruiting staff, I ended up asking my own staff of, where do you look for jobs? And a lot of them told me Instagram and Twitter, which I was like, oh, I didn't even think about social media. Because like, Maria was saying, I was using, the job websites originally. And the staff was telling me that a lot of times they look on Instagram and Twitter. So we ended up right now we have an Instagram page, and I use like the hashtags of like part-time jobs in Bakersfield, child development or child education, or different hashtags to kind of reach out to those people looking for that type of job. And we've noticed that some of the applicants that were coming in and we're interviewing, we've been asking them, how'd you hear about our positions, and a lot of them are seeing our Instagram posts. So we've been just making, I use Canva, and I just make, cute little posts for Instagram. I put like our QR codes, our website, just basic information about the positions that we have available. And I've been tagging the colleges, the community colleges that we kind of work with. I tag their Instagram pages. So now it's attached to their Instagram as well. And it seems to be spreading the word really well. I honestly did not even think about social media, because I personally, I never looked on, social media for jobs. I use that just for memes and seeing my family. So it was kind of cool that we are getting, we're reaching a lot of people using Instagram. I haven't used Twitter yet, because I personally don't know how to use Twitter. I'm researching that, but Instagram so far has been pretty cool. And like I said, just tagging those different colleges. I even, like our sister high schools, I tag their high schools as well, to reach out to the community on Instagram.
Awesome. Thank you. Thank you. Okay. Anybody else with any great stuff? I know you all got some great stuff. I don't want to shut this down. This is really great conversation right now. Yes, Jen, please.
Good morning. So what we do is we actually have a high school youth teach academy. And so we work with community partners. And so they have lead teachers who are the, mentors and actually our teacher of record. And they recruit high school students, and high school students get either paid stipends, or they also can get their community service hours that they need for graduation. And so what we have seen is that then when they graduate, they're ready to come work with us. They've been doing it. They've had a lot of skill. They go through trainings on classroom management. They know rules and routines, PBIS. They're familiar with this schools, and they reflect our community. And so we've had, this program's been going on for 2 decades. And this year, one of our participants from 15 years ago is now an academic coordinator, administrator at one of our school sites for the regular school day. And so she started teaching with our programs 18 years ago. And so it's just a really great mentorship program where we're building our own capacity in our own community. We still have a huge shortage, and it's super frustrating. But it's one of my favorite pieces of our program. People talk about it and come back after college and want to come work in our programs because they remember teaching in it. So it's a really great program. We still need, I need 80 staff by January to be able to be at my ACES and 21st century numbers. So it's a great model, and it's not quite doing everything we need it to do.
Fantastic. Actually, Jen, that's an incredibly great segue into where we're going with this presentation. And I'm glad to hear you guys have been doing it for a long time, because the stuff we may share may sound new, and it may be new to people, but actually it's good practice. And the one thing we know, we're kind of fortunate at CAN, we get to see programs and districts and things from all over the state, right? Kind of from a 30,000 foot level. So we see a lot of things that work and a lot of things that don't. One of the problems with education as a whole is success doesn't travel well, right? You've been in districts where one high school or a couple schools have this great thing going on, but they can't quite get it to go at the other schools. Well, think about going from district to district when folks have stuff. So there are a lot of things out there going on, have been going on for years, that are great strategies, and we're going to talk about a couple of them. We are going to talk about college students and retention in a few minutes. Some strategies we have. These strategies coming up, some of them are long-term, but some of them are middle-term, I would say. It's things you could do to get in employees by summertime. And then we can talk too about adding in a classification of IA for expanded learning. We have some information and thoughts on that as well. What I'm going to do, because of this segue, I'm going to I would like Leslye, can you, I want to show a few more pathways into expanded learning, just so everybody gets a look at them and some thoughts. And then I want to go into talking about high school students and the great potential pool that exists right under our noses that we are supporting and encouraging people to do. So yeah, Leslye, can we go to slide 18? There we go. So just want to bring this list up for you so you folks can look at the list. Maybe it gives you some ideas you haven't thought about. Maybe it validates some of the stuff you're doing, but wanted you to have an opportunity to look at that list. Yes, the thing we're going to be going into in the strategy that Ken is looking at is, we've got a couple of them, but one of them that we think is most important and something that can really help folks get staff, you know, like I say, as early as the summer, and a continuous pipeline, as it would, of employees for your programs. Basically, as Jen describes it, we would describe it as a grow your own, right? Grow your own for a lot of really good reasons, a lot of great reasons. So if and you know what, a couple of things when we talked about work with high school students and really going deep on that was why we're doing it, why now, and some other compelling reasons I want to share with you. Clearly the why is the exponential need for expanded learning staff. That's why we're all here, right? We're trying to fill those spots. And the largest pool of potential expanded learning staff, or the widest on-ramp, if we use that metaphor, onto the expanded learning highway, are your current expanded learning students or your high school students in your district if you don't have an expanded learning or assets program in high school. So this is not assets program specific. You can do this whether you have an assets program or not. But looking at those high school students, because each successive class of high school graduates, a source that can be replenished annually, right? Could become our next EXL staff, right? Giving them that experience, right? They're going to be looking for a job. They may be looking for a job already, but if they're going out to look for a job and they've had an opportunity to volunteer, to do some work, an internship of sorts in the expanded learning program, when they come out, to Jen's point, they know how to do it. They've done it. They feel comfortable. And it's something they may want to come back and do rather than go the fast food route or any of those other routes. Nothing wrong with those, but wouldn't it be, but they will have the confidence and the experience to actually entertain this. Because I think also when we talked about the job descriptions earlier, some of these job descriptions sound like there's no way I could ever do that if I'm a young person, right? Or I'm not ready yet. So we think that's a really, really big deal. And so being able to do these will actually create your own pipeline, right, for students. So why now? Well, why now? You know, up till now, I don't know of many, and there may be exceptions, but I don't know of many providers that ever take their help wanted sign down, right? Always looking for people. Very few people are fortunate enough to have filled all of their spots, right? So in our field, even before ELOP, staffing and retention of staff has been an issue, right? It's something that we deal with all the time. But now, and the reason why we may be able to make some great changes now and employ these things is because it used to be us having to fill those. And district administrators may not have been all that concerned, unless you're a district administrator who's running the expanded learning program, of course you're concerned, right? But now folks are listening. If you have a creative idea or you have creative ways to be able to fill those ELOP positions that the district is now responsible for doing, you're going to be able probably to get those conversations. They will be listening and they will probably want to help them solve the problem they have in filling their staff. Other compelling reasons on why: equity, right? Equity. Districts that have ACES funding and ELOP, and now many ELOP programs, are in those similar communities that have a diverse school of students that are in demand, that we want for our EXL staff, right? We are actually recruiting, right, from the community with our high school students, right? And so this, once we get them to work in the expanded learning program, we've essentially kind of put them on an educational career path, right? They're on the expanded learning career path because they have a job or they've worked with that. And so that will, it's, people ask me all the time, where are we going to find this diverse group of expanded learning, right? Youth workers, and where are we going to find the diverse group of teachers that everybody knows we need? Folks, they're the kids that we're working with. They're those high school kids. Those are your kids. Those are the kids that are going to become the diverse workforce that we need in expanded learning and teaching. And so, you know, this promotes that, right? And if you're looking at equity, sometimes this is referred to as designing at the margins, right? And a great exercise in that. So it would do that. Also, when you think about most of the students that we work with, unfortunately, are not going to four-year universities. They're probably going to community colleges or other post-secondary options. But all of them are going to need a job to be able to stay in college, right? To be able to go. And of course, these work opportunities provide them, right, a financial support or a place to get a job that they can do and help them get through college and, you know, quite frankly, get a lot of practicum in doing so, especially if their career path is anything in not just education, but perhaps any kind of human services or social services, right? Any of those careers, expanded learning work supports, right? Builds the practicum, builds the confidence, and build those things. So this is why we think doing high school students or getting them involved is really important. Next slide, Leslye, 17, I think. No, 17, the graphic. Thank you. So this graphic is the graphic that Ken has put together that kind of shows you or demonstrates how we're thinking about expanded learning, getting people started in expanded learning, the growth that goes on within expanded learning, and then going beyond expanded learning, what people go on to after there. You will see that, and what we're kind of focusing on today, obviously, is pathways into the field, right? You can see the top thing is high school volunteer internships and pre-apprenticeships. We're going to talk about that. College student credit internships, apprenticeships, and employment. We've had expanded learning programs that take interns from community colleges, right? Older adult retired professional volunteer and employment. We do have some opportunities coming up that we're investigating with ARP. And then your traditional recruitment methods, right? We're not abandoning any of those. So when we talk about high school students doing this work, what we like to talk about is in a program that I think Jen really refers to is what we like to call internal internships or provider-based internships. Now, when I say that, okay, these are not CTE recognized internships, okay? For those of you in academia, that's really where internship works. When we talk about in this conversation, internal internships or provider-based internships, those would be in a CTE language, those would be work experience, okay? Which is still very valuable. Work experience is a very valuable thing for those that are doing college and career and CTE things. They will tell you that having young people doing documented work experience is great for their dashboard. So it's very important to them as well. So typically, what happens is you recruit high school students. Now, again, it's easier to recruit high school students, perhaps, if you have an assets program. But if you don't, every elementary school feeds at some point to a high school, all within the same district. So recruiting high school students that might be interested in working in the expanded learning program. Now, when I say working, it would be considered volunteer, right? However, what a lot of folks do is they give the young people some employability skills trainings, right? Give them some basic training, and then we'll place them into the expanded learning program as a volunteer where they work alongside program leaders in helping provide program, right? Typically what we've done too, people do is they benchmark things, right? So when they come in for the first few weeks, let's say they're going to be there 10 weeks, 40 to 60 hours, right? They will go in, and the first 3 weeks, they might just be getting acclimated, learning a few things. The middle 4 weeks, they're more actively participating and maybe leading some activities, albeit with the adult in the room, right? Because they don't count to the ratio. And then in the last few weeks, perhaps delivering some lessons or some activities themselves, again, under the supervision of the adult in the room. Couple things can happen. Community service can be signed off on, right? A lot of districts have community service requirement. This is a community service that they can sign off on. A lot of folks give what we call those students a program completion award. Now, program completion award, some people call them stipends. Some people would call them scholarships. I would suggest you avoid that terminology because stipends and scholarships do carry some other requirements. So the term program completion award is often used. Typically, a student that does this in a semester might get a $250 program completion award, right? It's not a salary. It's not a wage. And a student, documented or undocumented, could do 2 semesters worth of this work, get $250 each semester, and still be under the $600 limit that needs to be reported to the IRS. So this would open up these opportunities to all of your students. Nobody would be able to be left out. Your ELOP funds can't pay for those program completion awards. You can use the funding to do that. So that's a great way to encourage young people to come in and work in the programs. I know a lot of people have done them, not the only one, but I did one in Santa Ana. We did 25 students at 2 different high schools, 4 semesters in a row. Never lost a kid. They all completed. And many of those folks are now working in that district. So all very, very, very possible. And again, getting them exposed to this, what are the chances that they'll come back when they go to community college? Or you might be able to hire them, we'll get to that, right as they graduate. So we think that's one of the first steps, is getting high school young people involved. There were a couple questions in here. Yes, there's nothing, there are 16, 17-year-olds, juniors and seniors that do work in the instructional day in some districts. There are some in rare occasion that do work in the after-school program. There is nothing in the ed code or in the grant that says that they can't. However, one must be cautioned that's a local decision, right? So those opportunities can exist if your local district or your local LEA approves that. And then the other thing we're looking at, and I will tell you this, we've got a little bit more on it later, is also the apprenticeships for high school students is another potential opportunity. And those apprenticeships are earn and learn models. So registered apprenticeships would also be a way that you could hire somebody in your after school program while they're still in high school.
Stacy just brought up a point around busing high schoolers over. So this is also something that you can work on with your district in collaborating. Did you want to say more about that, Bill?
Yeah, transportation mitigation. Yes, that is a big deal. Thank you, Stacy. We've run these programs in rural areas and we've run these programs in urban areas. And there's some strategies around that, right? High schoolers it is considered safe for them to walk to locations, albeit if they're close enough. So that's considered safe transportation for them. So that's always an option. Come on, let's be honest though, if we're working with high school kids, you can't, I mean, it'll be easy to fill up the high schools around, the elementary schools around your high school, but what about the ones outside? And that's not enough to support that. So what we typically do is we will ask students when they apply for these, what their nearest elementary school is to their home, right? Because they're all got to go home. So oftentimes that helps us mitigate the transportation because they have an opportunity. They out at 3, we expect them to show up on site at 4. And if that elementary school is near their home, it may not be exactly next to the high school, but that's a great location for them to go to. In my rural areas, we bought bus passes. City bus passes. We bought city bus passes for our interns and made sure that, they had a way to get back and forth to those, because these schools are way, way, way apart, right? And so we use public transportation. We bought the bus passes and used public transportation to get them back and forth. I've also seen occasions where you have some students that drive and they'll take other students with them to some of the internship locations. But transportation mitigation is something that you do have to be, you do have to consider. But I've never had that keep us from doing it, even in those two extremes. So, and you can be creative with whatever you have. I hope that helps answer the question. Ashley, was there anything else? Did I help with that? And Stacy? I hope.
I see some thumbs up from folks.
Okay, cool. Cool. And you know, we're not going to go, we have presentations about the internal internships and how to set those up and so on and so forth. So there we do have some things that we can share with you. I think we can probably put it in a resource somewhere. But that's some of the technical assistance we're providing at CAN, right? Some folks are already doing this. Jen's already doing this. There's folks that are good at it. But what we're trying to do is get everybody to do it, right? Where it's possible, right? Because if you can get these high school kids and working for you the minute they graduate in the next couple of 3 years, that's going to help retain them, number one, right? And let me talk just a little bit about, I'd love to share with you what Elk Grove does, because I think this is a really great strategy as well. At Elk Grove, they realized they were really having trouble going to hire folks for summer a year or two ago. So what they did is kind of what we've alluded to earlier, is they got their high school kids, they recruit them, got them involved in working in the expanded learning program, elementary school expanded learning programs during the school year. And then before the school year was out, they gave them all IA exam test prep, right? Got them prepared, and then made sure that the district arranged 1 or 2 opportunities for them to take the IA test while they were still in high school, okay? Idea behind that was that the minute they graduated, they had their summer staff ready to go, right? And once you've worked there in the summer, chances are if you're going to community college, you need a job, you're probably just going to continue working, right? You're going to continue working for them. So when I talk about it's a medium-term strategy, I would guess that would be it. I mean, if you could set it up so you had a bunch of high school students rolling out at your district that would be working in your expanded learning programs in the summer and moving forward, that's something that could be done before the end of the school year. That's still in play. That could still be done. And again, I go back to the IA exam, and passing that is the big key to success here, right? Because otherwise you're going to have to wait for 48 units of college, and that's going to really cut your chances down. So that's what Elk Grove does. They're now looking to move to be able to do that and actually pay high school students during the instructional year. But again, if you're interested in doing one of these provider-based internships or internal internships, as we call them, please let us know. We can provide you with technical assistance to help you be successful at that, or more successful right away. Okay, great conversation. Okay, so let's Leslye, let's go to the number 19, if you would. Okay, so we're talking about earn and learn and grow in your own models within expanded learning. Here are some of the things that we're talking about doing, or that we're suggesting, or things that actually occur in different places that you might think about doing it yourself. Volunteer expanded learning, work exploration, like as an individual. Sometimes you'll have kids that want to go work in the program, right? Or individuals will walk up and want to do that. That strategy works. That happens all the time. We would hope, though, that you would go kind of to the next level, which is volunteer expanded learning work experience, or EXL programming, internal internships that we described. Again, not CTE internships. And by the way, if you have a great CTE department and they're interested in doing this, they would make an incredible partner for an actual recognized internship. So I want to let you know and entertain the idea, if you have a great CTE department, or you have an educational pathway or early childhood education pathway, great place to be recruiting and providing experience with. So if you have those kind of CTE options, please make sure you engage them. It could benefit you and your folks greatly. So we talked about that volunteer work experience. Again, we talked about there are ways to provide incentives. You can use your ELOP money to provide those program completion awards. You can sign off on community service. There are other things that you can do to incentivize those. The third bullet was those CTE recognized internships. And the other thing that we're working on, and actually one of these is actually being piloted as we speak, is we're working with the Department of Apprenticeship Standards to create a recognized expanded youth apprenticeships and pre-apprenticeships. So there is a program leader apprenticeship that is about to kick off this March. That's a pilot that CAN is working as an intermediary. So those standards have actually already been submitted and have already been approved. So that's a huge step moving in that direction. We will be looking at CAN to add a apprenticeship for site coordinator. And then over time, having apprenticeships for levels such as we said, program leader, which exists, site assistant, right? And then one for site coordinator, which we just spoke about, and then one for perhaps regional managers, so on and so forth. So we will be building those standards and apprenticeships as we move forward. One of the advantages of the apprenticeship, and it spoke to earlier on the side, is retention, right? When one is in an apprenticeship, it's a pretty big commitment, and it comes with an educational component, right? It can be a strictly community college, what they call required supplemental instruction. It can be a full community college load, which, by the way, if they're an apprentice, they would get that and a lot of their things for free. There's their big advantage in doing that. Where was I going with that? I'm sorry. So it has that educational, but also there are some youth workers and some folks that we have that aren't interested in a degree, right? So the opportunity to give them classes delivered by field experts is also a potential possibility. So those classes could be, CAN would work as an intermediary to arrange those classes. It could be many of our different providers across the state who have expertise in certain things that could provide those and those required supplemental instructional hours. And then it could be a hybrid of both as well, right? Some community college classes, some young people aren't going to be able to take a full load and do this. So how are we accommodating them? Well, they could take a lesser load, take some of the youth development specific courses that we will have developed, and they will be able to do their apprenticeship that way. The idea behind the apprenticeship is that they're staying and that they're moving from one apprenticeship to the other, which could follow them through their community college careers, as it were. And then, of course, when they have these apprenticeships, we're hoping that it allows them, because remember, before we had 30,000, we have 30,000 people. So there are only so many career ladders in expanded learning with 30,000 people in the field. Well, if you've got now 80 to 100,000 people in the field, I suggest there's a lot of career ladders in expanded learning that will be opening up because we have to support that staff, right? We have to have those structures in place. And so also the apprenticeships will help support the field in that a person could take a site coordinator apprenticeship, and if they had to move or go somewhere else, they could take that with them and it would be recognized statewide, so they could plug in other places. So it gives them an opportunity to keep moving forward in the field. Okay, I've talked for quite a bit. I'm tired of hearing myself. Okay, so I'm going to open this up. Any questions you have with what I was talking about, any questions you might have, any things that you're doing or anything like that we have, I think about 10 minutes left. Leslye, 9 minutes left.
Yeah, we have 9 minutes left.
Okay, so I want to take this opportunity to let you folks ask any questions. Again, just raise your hand. We will find if you have any questions, any thoughts, anything you'd like to share about what we talked about. I either did a great job or I bored you all silly. Okay. So, yeah. Here we go. All right.
Oh, there's a hand. All right.
Okay. Ashley.
Two hands.
All right, there we go. You're not leaving me hanging. I appreciate it. Okay. Ashley, go ahead, please.
My question was for Dennis, actually, funny enough.
Okay, we'll do that.
I was going to ask about, you said that you worked with your HR department to kind of look at the exam that the staff have to take to apply. And I was curious if you knew like what the minimum requirements, like how many questions, like what do we have to have? You know what I mean?
I don't know if there's a minimum I'm sure there's minimum requirements. I'm not sure if it varies from district to district, but for us, it's 50 questions. So, and I think there's another one that's maybe 60. I guess it depends on if it's with IA, you know, there's different positions or within a district, but 50 questions is what we're looking for. I think it's 60, I'm sorry, it's 60 questions, but they gave us a paper for 250 questions so that we can go and eliminate out of there and circle the ones that we want, I thought are appropriate, and eliminate the ones that we don't want. And I'm glad I did, because that has not been done, and it had not been done in a long time, and it needed to be done. And then for the other position, same thing. I think it was our activity specialist. It was a few more questions than the PL, but they started us off with like maybe 150 questions to choose from.
Thank you.
Awesome.
I want to add that varies from district to district. So there are some districts that have much less than 50 questions. So I'm coming from the San Francisco Bay Area. And so my staff had to take the IA exam, and they were less than 50 questions.
Right. I was going to say, I tried to advocate to make the test even less, but they were saying 50 for our district. So it does vary. Some districts may say, go ahead and reduce it.
Right.
I did have a question too.
Yeah, no, I know your hand was up. Go ahead,
My
buddy.
question was, are you aware of any other trainings? Because I know this labor shortage or the challenges with the labor market are not unique to Expanded Day. Are you aware of any other statewide efforts and or trainings and workshops to kind of keep us abreast of what's being done within our entire state to try to build a robust labor market and incentivize people to get back in the labor market? Are you all aware of anything being done with the state of California or within education in general? Because obviously I saw in the chat box, Expanded Day is in a great situation because we got this great funding, but now we're at this crossroad with the staffing. But the other piece is not just us. Our IAs are lacking, there's a lot of other challenges. I'm just wondering statewide efforts for the education, the overall umbrella of education to build a robust labor market.
So to answer your question, Dennis, there are efforts going on. They're going on from Superintendent Thurman's office on down to local districts and so on and so forth. So I think throughout the entire, these are going on. I mean, the work that we've done in CAN in promoting, right, these workforce efforts are part of those efforts. I know we've also met with, as again, Superintendent Thurman. He's looking at teacher pathways, but they're now looking at, here's the deal. When you hire 90 to 100,000 people, hopefully in expanded learning, you've put them on a career path, right? In education, that's what you've done. And so getting them to realize that they just with this money, they teed up this many people to be in an education pathway, and you're looking for teachers and you're looking for other school staff, right? Certificated staff doesn't, right? The whole gamut. There's the opportunity. So they're looking at that because they're realizing they have things to fill. And we keep telling them, if you teed it up like this, why would you turn around and walk away? You need to put in those other steps. So there are a lot of discussions and a lot of efforts, as I said, from Dr. Thurman's office all the way down. This event today is in fact one of them. But as this funding came so quickly, right, and without a structure in place to really, you would have hoped to have in place to make this a little easier for everybody. Everybody's trying to figure it out. So there are efforts going on anywhere in gathering those best practices or promising practices and so on and so forth, is what everybody's doing right now at full speed to try to provide those answers. But like I said earlier, we used to not have enough funding, and we never had enough people, but we could get ratio, right? We could do that. But now we've got all the money, and now we can't find a way to get the ratio for all the challenges that we talked about. So all that to say, yes, there's a lot of efforts going on. There's a lot of discussions going on, but I, probably wouldn't be the first person to tell you that it's like turning a big ship. It doesn't happen quickly. I think the quickest things that are going to happen are the things that people are doing locally, right? That they're doing from at the ground because I don't think we can wait for the other stuff to happen. It's coming, it's going to happen, but we really under a lot of pressure to get that done now. So I really think a lot of the learning and a lot of the work is really going on in the trenches, Dennis.
Yeah.
I hope that answers that.
Yeah, and I do want to say too, like the reality is that there's folks on the ground that have been trying to do this work for well beyond, right? And so now it's systems are trying to catch up and start these conversations and are understanding and recognizing that there is this need. And so like Bill's saying, right, there's like so much happening on the ground that this is why we kind of encourage this dialogue and for folks to tap into each other and their networks. But yes, there is definitely work up in the systems level that is happening, conversations and work groups that are being built. Those things are happening. You know, some of the examples are like what Bill was saying about the apprenticeships, collaborating with teacher pathways. There's different organizations that are collaborating with their school districts and community colleges to create teacher residencies. There's a lot of different things that are happening to try to really remedy the issue of the workforce. I was going to say there was someone that had mentioned about having issues with college students because they tend to leave. Something to recognize too is that there's all these different angles that need to be you have to address, right, as you're trying to recruit your workforce. Like understanding that, you know, sometimes folks come into this work, they realize, oh, education, out of school time work is maybe not my jam, and then move on, right? And it's important that we kind of build structures to make sure that that happens like as seamless as possible. And then also building and nurturing our workforce to the for the folks that do want to stay and do want to continue on in this career path. So it's kind of like always making sure that when you get your staff, you nurture immediately, provide supports for them, making sure that they have professional development, making sure that you're checking in with them. Maybe you have a liaison job, kind of similar to what Julie had talked about, that supports them with their education plan. All these things, the same things that we would provide for our young people, provide for your staff, right? Especially when folks are tend to be your alumni, right? So you don't stop supporting them just because they turned 18, right? So we want to continue to encourage that and nourish that. And so I think we are at the end. I did want to say, like, we'll be sharing the slides. We didn't get through all of them. We do appreciate your feedback. So at the end of the conference, you will have an opportunity to submit a feedback. One last thing I do want to say is that those of you that work with young people, something that really is lacking that I believe that does slow down the systems-wide support for the workforce is data collection, right? And so this survey right here is an opportunity to offer to your staff. It takes about 30 to 40 minutes. Having them complete it really will give us more information about this workforce because there really is not much, right? And so it is important to kind of like make sure that we're collecting information as much as we can so we can continue to come up with more ideas and more strategies to support the workforce. And then you can contact us. These are our emails. And yes, thank you so much.
Yeah, and again, I want to thank each and every one of you that shared and those of you that showed up to listen. This was a really great dialogue and conversation. I'm really thrilled that you all were able to share what's going on well with what you're doing, what's not perhaps. But the sharing that was done here in this last hour and 15 minutes has been incredible. And I want to thank every one of you for sharing. And hopefully everybody walked out with it, maybe at least one strategy on what they might want to do, you know, once they leave, or something they might want to try. And if you walked out with at least one, then I suggest this was maybe time well spent. So thank you all very much. Please enjoy the rest of the event. Thank you.